It's possible that you may never have heard of Guam before. You have no idea where it is. You have no idea that it's actually a U.S. territory. Let's talk a little bit in this video about the Battle of Guam, which was one of the most significant events that took place here and has a lot to do with U.S. history. In 1941, December the 10th, 3 days after the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, they invaded and took possession of this island here. This is the most western U.S. territory. It's located in the North Mariana Islands. It's the island of Guam. Guam is home to the native Chamorro people, but it was colonized by the Spanish, and it has been in U.S. possession since they captured it in 1898. The Japanese kept possession of Guam for almost 3 years during World War II, from 1941 to 1944, when the U.S. launched Operation Forester to take back the Mariana Islands. The battle plan was to invade Guam from the east side of the island near Opera Harbor. Opera Harbor is the current location of U.S. Naval Base Guam, and it's the best deep seawater port on the island. So it was a strategic position. They determined that they weren't going to invade right away, but they were actually going to bomb the Japanese fortifications with aircraft from carriers and also bombers out of the Marshall Islands. If they could secure the harbor and the peninsula, which wraps around the harbor, it would be a strategic location for new airstrips to be built, so they could build their B-29 Boeing super fortresses to bomb the Japanese mainland. The bombardment began on June the 11th, 1994, and it continued until the 27th. During that time, there were at least 12 Japanese cargo ships sunk, and many of their fishing vessels, which cut off a lot of their food. On the 27th, battleships and cruisers moved in and started pounding the beach with their guns from a closer distance out in the water. The U.S. was determined to gain both air and naval superiority, and they brought in 274 ships to participate in the invasion. They hit the beach with 4,200 bombs and fired a total of 45,000 shells from those naval cruisers. The bombardment was largely successful, but there was still a need for an amphibious invasion. The Japanese certainly were not going to surrender, and so that was the next stage. And the invasion was launched 2 beachheads initially on both sides of the Opera Harbor, and the goal was to take first the peninsula where the harbor was located and then to push into southern Guam. But if you've ever been to Guam, you'll know that there's a giant reef on the east side of the island, which makes it difficult to bring troops in close to the land. And so the amphibious invasion was difficult because there weren't very many amphibious vehicles, and the men had to wade through that water to get to the beach, and they were taking heavy fire from the Japanese, who were already lodged on the beach in pillboxes and trenches and other things. The invasion began on the 21st. 4 days later, on the 25th, they were able to secure the Orote Peninsula. They killed the Japanese general Takeshi Takashina on October the 28th, and then by the 29th, they had gained complete control of the peninsula. At this point, the Japanese were tired. They were running low on ammunition and supplies, and then they determined that they were going to pull all their forces out of the south. They were going to push up into the north and hold the island as long as they possibly could. Being the rainy season at that time, the rain and the mud really took its toll on the Americans' ability to push up into the north, especially with all of the jungle that was there during that time. This tank is a testament to that mud, and this is a U.S. Sherman tank that actually got stuck here because when it rains, this red volcanic clay gets really hard to navigate. The Allies ended up engaging the Japanese on Mount Barrigada and their front line there, which sits in the middle of the island. And after a difficult fight, the Japanese line collapsed. On August the 10th, the organized Japanese resistance ended, and the commanding officer for the Japanese committed ritual suicide, which is called seppuku, and the island was declared secured by the Allies. In total, the Americans suffered 1,700 casualties, 6,000 wounded, and the Japanese suffered close to 20,000 casualties. There's a lot of people who don't know where Guam is or why Guam is significant or anything that happened on Guam or that Guam is even a U.S. territory. And so I hope this has been somewhat helpful to you to understand where Guam comes from, that it came into possession of the United States in 1898, but it had to be retaken in World War II, and there's some significant battles that took place here. And so maybe that'll give you a better understanding of history, especially as we celebrate the 4th of July, which is the day that I'm filming this. If you like this content, remember to subscribe to the channel, share the video, and check out this channel for more Guam videos and more travel videos in general.